children's illnesses. And children's illnesses, of course, is a vast topic. So what we're going to go through is some principles, because it's virtually impossible to share everything with regards to all children's diseases. It's just not possible. So if you have something specific and I happen to know the answer, I'm welcome to help, but otherwise just have a look at the principles. The first thing we want to talk about is education. Because believe it or not, this is really the most important one. Unnatural medicine practices and chemicals are approved by the Medical Control Council and the FDA. Right, so just hold that thought for a minute. It says unnatural medicine. Right. Now, natural medicines and natural medicine practices are not like that. It is vitamins, minerals, and the herbs. They are not approved by the MCC. MCC is the South African Medical Control Council and the FDA in the States. So it's not usually okayed by it. Unnatural medicine is practiced by your specialist doctor. That's your pediatrician. Some of your pediatricians may have phoned to treat your child. They're the only people licensed by the FDA and the MCC to diagnose, treat and prescribe medicine. That's important to know, right? So if that is what you require, please know that we are not qualified to do that, because we are not doctors, and they are the only people that can do that. We simply share what we have learned and experienced with raising our 8 children. We do not offer any medical advice. So, now you know there are 2 worlds from which you can live. And sometimes it's important to go to the unnatural medicine. It is just sometimes important. So let me tell you what we see every day. We see and we hear on Facebook and in the shop and from people all around that people have fever, or children have fever. And what happens, they go for antipyretics. That is your fever suppressing medication. They take antibiotics. They have runny noses. They take an antibiotic. They have sinus. They take cortisones. Or another favorite thing, if you get a little bit older, they take a Bosch drill and they drill your nose open. They also take antibiotics. Then if you get tonsillitis, they take fever medication. They take antibiotics. Or they simply rip out the tonsils. It's called tonsillectomy. Furthermore, if they have diarrhea and vomiting, they usually end up in hospital. If your child has a cough, they get sometimes cough medicine, they get cortisone, they get asthma pumps, they get antibiotics. If they have eczema or acne, things like that, usually it's cortisone to suppress what you see, or they have an antibiotic. Children's diseases, like whooping cough, measles, those things that you and I had when we were little, they use vaccinations for them. Right, so that's what we see on a daily basis. Now, what we call that is simply chemicals and doctors. And again, if that is what you want, that's not what you're going to hear tonight. You're going to hear something different. What we have seen and experienced countless times, because we have many children and we have been in this industry for many years, is we see fever, runny noses, tonsillitis, coughs. That's what we have experienced firsthand in our house and with our friends. We've had many bouts of vomiting, diarrhea, and gastritis. We've had measles. We've had little newborns have baby measles. We've had whooping cough. In fact, CJ, my son at the camera in the back there, he has had whooping cough from the vaccination, 100 days whooping cough. And he's the reason we're in this business, because we almost lost him to vaccinations. We've had eczema, our second oldest, Heidi Marie, she's had horrible eczema. And the thing about that is we were really uneducated at that stage. And a very good doctor helped us homeopath, helped us to get Heidi right, and also put us on the right path again. So we've seen countless allergies, eczemas, vaccinations. We've done it, we haven't done it. We've basically seen it all. Lenny is a dietitian, and I was a biomedical engineer, so we worked in the hospital industry for many years. So it's not like we haven't seen the unnatural medicine. We've actually experienced it firsthand. She's had some operations, I've had some operations. So, don't think we're giving you just a one-sided story. So the point is, how do you do it then? How do you do it if you don't go to all those things that I've just described? Well, it's actually 4 steps. 4 simple steps. And the first one, believe it or not, you have to be 100% in touch with your child. We'll look at each one of these individually, but I'm just going to show you what we've got. Then the second point is diet. Diet, and again diet. Most importantly, diet. Okay, and the third one is no vaccinations. Like I said, we've done vaccinations, we haven't done vaccinations. So if you don't like the story that we don't give vaccinations, that's fine, listen to all the other things. Natural remedies and common sense is the last part. So in the natural remedies and common sense, we'll give you practical illustrations of certain medications that you can use, or natural medicines and things like that. But what we're going to do now is we're first going to have a look at how to be 100% in touch with your child. Now, of course, it's not very easy to be 100% in touch with your child if he's in daycare or if he's in school. All right, or he's not like in boarding school. It's maybe you're 10% in touch then, or maybe they're half the day they're with you. Maybe you're 50% in touch. So it's very important, because you'll see why. The effectiveness of natural medicine is really when you see something and you can act immediately. If you let it slide, you can still turn it around. I can speak from experience, because we have let it slide, and you can still turn it around, but it is much harder work to do that. And you have to really know what you're doing if you want to turn it around there, because you can't play around. I mean, in the end, in an emergency situation, your child's life is at stake, and you don't play around with a child's, or with anybody's life for that matter. But what we're talking about is common sense things that you can do. So what is the first thing you do? You know when the child's acting differently. It's unwell. Maybe it's just naughty. Or you should know your child. What did it do? What happened 24 hours ago? Because really that is what plays out. In other words, who did we visit? Could we have picked up a bug there? Did they eat something different in the last 24 hours? Because you know, the little ones, I mean, they'll just start crying, or be cryful, or be uneasy, or have a little bit of a fever or what. And it's very difficult to see what it is that's happened. So you've got to backtrack always a little bit, and not just evaluate the moment. See what happened moments ago, like 24 hours or 48 hours ago. Maybe you traveled with a child. Maybe his body is sore. Maybe, who knows, right? Maybe you ate at some restaurant and maybe you feel a little bit unwell, and that's probably what your child's feeling. So there are various things that you can look at. But again, the problem is, if you want a diagnosis of exactly what's wrong, you're at the wrong place. Because see, doctors diagnose. Like I said, we do not diagnose. Sometimes it helps to diagnose, but often people think, well, why did my child have a fever? Well, if he's well now, why do you care? I mean, you want to spend money to go find out why? Yes, of course, that's okay if you want to do that, but sometimes, and more than often, it's actually pointless. And the reason it's pointless is simply because when you put a name to a disease or to a fever or whatever, often they can't do a thing. A friend of mine, the owner of 7.5, after many years, they said to him, finally, we've discovered what's the matter with you. You've got lupus. He said, great, so what do we do? He says, what do you mean? We can't do anything. It's like we know what it is now. So now we know we can't do anything. So it's not very wise to just go for a diagnosis. And quite often people or doctors can't, you know, if something is the matter, then, well, you can't do something. You just got to let the body play it out, and this is what we're going to do. So if you want a diagnosis, go to the doctor. They'll give you medicines to suppress it. And sometimes that's needed, and then please do that. So what you're about to hear now is not supported by your pediatrician, dietitian, or general practitioner. Instead, it's common sense, good nutrition, and natural remedies that you're going to learn about. So what we see is when your child runs a temperature, maybe it's the body fighting something. When your child's coughing, maybe the body is trying to excrete something. Or maybe there's a postnasal drip. Maybe your child's got a runny nose, and maybe it's excreting an irritant. Like maybe it went to the horses, and it got a little bit of the hay in the nose. Or it's got a tummy ache. Maybe it ate something bad, like it was at a party, and maybe your child had chocolates, chips, marshmallows, licorice, part of the cake, some green cool drink, and also sampled the orange cool drink and the black cool drink, And maybe it's a little bit unwell. Don't take him to the doctor. Just, maybe he needs a good bowel movement. Or lie down or throw up. Or do something like that. Or it could be a virus. Yes, it is possible because viruses are around. But you see, you must understand that there are two theories, and the one is the bug theory and the other one is the terrain theory. The bug theory, if you go to your doctor, that's what you'll experience. We must kill all bugs, so take this antibiotic. All bugs must be exterminated. Take this vaccine against all illnesses out there. But that's the bug theory. The terrain theory says, well, if somebody is sick and he sneezes and 2 other people inhale it, why does only one of the people get sick? That's the terrain theory. In essence, what it is, the one person's terrain or the body is stronger than the other person. All right, so those are to be 100% in touch with your child. So understand what the body is doing and support the body rather than fighting the system. Okay, so support it, and then the second one is diet. That we're going to look at. Diet. Now, we're going to spend most of our time here because I tell you what, this is the biggest cause of everything we see. Literally is the biggest cause. And it's very easy, it was very difficult to get all of it right. So what we say is, what has gone wrong? Well, I tell you what, eating wood is not very natural. But it's common sense not to eat wood, right? But if some clever marketing is done to improve the taste, texture and experience, and if people in authority on nutrition start proclaiming the health benefits of it, well, people will eat it. Over time, people will actually become accustomed to it and they'll like it. They say, well, how can we go without it? So when people start developing digestive issues, allergies and other ailments from eating wood, and end up in the doctor's consulting room, this is what's going to happen, right? They will leave the doctor's consulting room with a drug to suppress that symptom of tummy ache. I mean, it sounds ludicrous, but you'll understand in a minute, right? Furthermore, no doctor will tell them that eating wood is not good. Because, I mean, why would you kill the goose with the golden eggs? Dietitians will tell them they need wood. It's part of their balanced diet, right? Yeah. Fellow humans will tell them, listen, it's natural, God created it. So it must be okay, we can have it. And how can we ever imagine our life without eating wood? I mean, that's just the illustration, but you'll see in a minute. So what has gone wrong? Well, I'll tell you what, wheat has gone wrong. That's the first thing, eating wheat. The problem with wheat is that we no longer have real wheat. We have something that is better than what God made. Right? Wrong. Well, scientists in the laboratory, they change it just a little bit, so that it has a very high yield. Now, I can just tell you something. We have a garden at home, and actually we don't, Lenny has. And it's very interesting to see how plants yield differently in different years. It's not always the same. And the problem with that is that if you continue doing that and planting stuff on different years, the yields are not always the same. Now, if you're a farmer, like some of the farmers out here with massive farms, And with hectares under, let's say, wheat, you can't afford to have a bad yield. It must always be the same, because you plan your input and so forth, your input cost and so forth on it. So that is a problem. The other thing is they make it to be resistant against pests and plagues. And that's brilliant. Only thing is, it's not what it's supposed to be. It's like it's becoming more wood now, right? So, and also, of course, it can grow in any part of the world. So part of the improvement is that wheat kernel has an altered, what we call gluten content. Right? So it still has gluten, but it's a different one. This is what makes it impossible or possible to bake cakes or breads that looks like cake. You know, like years ago, a bread wouldn't look like it does today. It doesn't look like a cake. It was something solid, which unfortunately it no longer is. Right. So the other thing is with eating wheat, the body can no longer digest it properly. So some of the improved substances, and specifically some of the wheat, that ends up in the blood, those glutens, and they result in treatable illnesses. Now you'll see I spelled illnesses a little bit different because the dollar signs in there is major. Those illnesses. So guess why it's very difficult, like somebody says, it's very difficult for me to see your point of view when seeing your point of view affects my pocket directly. So it's not so. Right. So the other thing that you may find is sinus, eczema, asthma, ADD, weight gain, runny tummy, and so forth. Lots of things has gone wrong by eating the wheat. So now the other thing is, wheat, what is it? Well, listen, it's basically in everything that you go, except in here. But everything, if you go out to a restaurant, or you go into a Pick and Pay, or Woolies, or anywhere, that's more or less where you'll find it. So wheat is in bread, in buns, in whole wheat, or brown. People say, no, I don't eat wheat, I eat brown bread. Well, you know what? It's made from the same thing. Muffins is made from it. Biscuits, wheat picks. I mean, the name is a dead giveaway, right? And other cereals, wraps, couscous, pizza, pasta. All those things are made from wheat. So see how difficult it has become not to eat wood. How can we do without wood? And wood is cheap. That's the other thing that's so nice about it. So some healthy alternatives include rye, oats, spelt, barley, rice, corn, and quinoa. Now I must just qualify that. You must make sure that you don't get genetically modified corn because that'll end you up in the ditch as well. So it's difficult, and South Africa's got a very high content of genetically modified. It's even more genetically modified than wheat. So it's be careful, right? So if the child is gluten intolerant, then only rice, corn, potato, quinoa, and tapioca is okay. Because gluten in some children, like let's say for instance they've got Crohn's or they've got autism or something serious like that, then gluten is actually a problem. Doesn't matter if it's a healthy or unhealthy gluten, it's a problem. So potato, I've put in a color there because you've got to be careful of potato as well. For various reasons, I don't want to go into it now. Just if there is a problem, make a note of it and check if your child's not very doff the next day if he's had some potato, because that does happen. The second thing, so the first thing is wheat, and the second thing is dairy. So consuming dairy is something that has its origin in a female animal, usually a cow, right? Dairy products include milk. That means also people say, well, I don't drink milk, I drink 2% milk, or I drink fat-free milk. They reckon fat, you know, the good dietitians have told them fat is bad for you, so they don't eat any of those. So these are the things that we find these days is fat-free milk, low fat, no fat, full cream. Have you seen reduced fat cream on the shelves? Yeah. I mean, it's like reduced wetness water. They evaporate a bit and then give you a concentrate of water. I don't know. So I spoke to somebody, he says, what that means is they add water to it. So you're actually paying for some free water, expensive water. Reduced lactose. See, in nature you don't get reduced lactose. You get UHT, ultra high temperature processed milk. Homogenized milk means that you know, you may have different things in milk. You may have protein, water, fat, vitamins, and so forth. Now, after it's homogenized, it's broken down into some white substance that still looks like milk, but You can't determine the different parts now. And now it's really difficult for the body to break it down, because it's like, what on earth is this? It looked like milk, it smells like it, but it doesn't break down like it. So yogurt is also dairy of all kinds. Bulgarian, no, but I need plain yogurt. That's very good. It means it doesn't have sugar in it, which is a plus point, but unfortunately it still comes from a cow. Excuse me. Cheese in a spread, in a cottage cheese, hard, soft, matured, white, yellow, all of those things are cheese. See? Difficult not to eat wood. You understand? Difficult not to eat wood. Because dietitians tell you wood is good. Doctors say wood has no influence on your child's health. Where is milk hidden in? Well, in a milkshake, for instance. Meal replacement. Yes, but I use this fancy name and I add only 2% milk. Well, right, see, it's not 2% you add milk with 2% fat in it. It can be in cheese curls, right? Some people say, well, I don't drink milk, but do you eat cheese? Yeah, I love cheese, and it's like, I've got sinus problems. You'll see why that's a problem. Ideal milk. I heard the other day that they used to, if children, I don't know, maybe they still do it, if children couldn't drink milk, they gave them ideal milk. And I'm thinking, oh, it's very nice, but how horrible. Powdered milk, it's also that. And of course, there's a little bit of milk. Well, in some chocolates there's a lot of milk. And also, by the way, in the white sauce that you make, you usually put milk. Egg is also classified as dairy, but last time we checked, it comes from a chicken, not a female cow. Right? So just know that eggs are okay if they say you can't have dairy. So consuming dairy is milk or milk products are not fat-free, 2% lactose, reduced lactose, and all those kind of things in nature. That is not what it's like in nature. And that's part of the problem. So, I don't know if you've heard about A2 and A1 type. A1 type cows is the cows that you find these days. A2 type cows, like the old African cows, Guernsey, Jersey, those are non-mutated cows. And in a day or so I'm going to have a very, can I say, 3 articles I'm going to publish. One on wheat, one on dairy, one on sugar, because they're very in-depth articles. And the problem with milk is, of these newer type cows, the A1 type cows, is the problem that the milk molecule breaks off at a certain point, where in the older cows it didn't. It was a stronger molecule. So in the newer cows, the molecule breaks down, and that has a knock-on effect in the body. And that knock-on effect, one of the things that's triggered is a lot of histamine. Now you drink an antihistamine, this triggers a lot of histamine. And what happens with the histamine that's being triggered is that, of course, you get runny nose and all kinds of allergies. So if you find older cows, like the old African cows, those red ones with the large horns, and Guernsey and Jersey, different story to a certain extent. So we can say milk is not the same that we used to get. Okay? So when we consume dairy, because it's not the same, we can now get things like postnasal drip, stuffy nose, eczema, asthma, weight gain, hay fever, tonsillitis, coughs, gastritis, glue ear, brain-related disorders. That's very important, because that is part of the newer cows. They have certain opiates that gets released. And if your child is what we call gluten and casein free, it should be gluten and casein free. Casein is one of the proteins in milk, and the problem is if that ends up, the child sometimes goes completely wild, or can't focus, or goes back into autism, or whatever the case is. And lastly, but not least at all, is breast and prostate cancer for the mothers and the fathers of that child. That is a result of the dairy that is not the same. So some alternatives is rice milk, oat milk, quinoa milk, and soy milk. Now I've put soy in a color there because some soy can be good. Some soy, or let me say most soy, is genetically modified. Now if you look at a packet of soy, I don't have one right here, soy can say two things, well actually three things. The first one, it says nothing, it just says soy milk. Be careful. If it says GMO free, it means that the original seed, the soybean, could have been genetically modified, but after it's been through the process of making milk, you can no longer determine whether it's GMO or non-GMO. But it could still be GMO. So that says GMO free. The third one is that you should check, and that's the one that you, if you want to buy soy, the one that you can buy, it says non-GMO. It means the original seed has not been touched or been altered to make better. So that's the thing about soy. The only one thing is that 40% of children and adults who are sensitive to dairy is directly sensitive to soy milk as well. So you say, well, I've gone off dairy and I've gone onto soy, but my child still has the same problems. Yes, because you're on soy, and 40% of children do. So be careful of that. The third thing, so we had wheat, dairy, and now sugar. So consuming sugar, people say, well, white sugar. Yes, no, but I use brown sugar, see? Well, it's the same thing, it's sugar. Or yellow sugar. It's also in cool drinks, it's in Coke, it's soda, sweets, teas, tarts, cakes, pies, vegetables, if you cook like a boeretani, it's got... So what is the problem with sugar? What has gone wrong? Well, the thing is that it's 17 times refined. And it's stripped of all minerals, fibers and vitamins. Now, I haven't seen these people, but I quote Garth Kent from 7.5, who comes from Natal and speaks Zulu better than the Zulus. He says when you go into the sugarcane fields and you check them cutting the sugarcane, the first thing they do is they cut sugarcane and put a piece in their mouth and chew on it all day for energy. They have the most beautiful teeth that you can find, and it doesn't decay because it still has those vitamins, fibers and minerals and everything in the sugarcane. Refined sugar, this is a very interesting little book that I got many years ago. It's by William Dufty, Sugar Blues, tiny book, it's no longer in print. He says, refined sugar is lethal when ingested by humans because it provides only that which nutritionists describe as empty or naked calories. In addition, sugar is worse than nothing because it leaches the body of precious vitamins and minerals through the demand that it puts on the digestive system, detoxification system, and the elimination of the entire system. So if you take that stuff, it puts a massive load on it. It also creates a lot of acid. Okay, so it suppresses the immune system, it leaches minerals from the body, infections go rife, creates the acid like we said. And if you've looked at some of the other lectures that we've done, it actually says that, and that's what 7.5 is all about, it's alkaline, it's not acid. And most people that come to see me is acid, and sugar is one of the biggest things that causes acid in the body. So some things that you can use as alternatives for sugar is raw honey. It's very important to be raw honey. Most honey that you buy in chain stores, there would be some really good ones, but in those stores you actually find pasteurized honey. It's the same thing as golden syrup, just has a better taste. It's got no medicinal value left to it because all the enzymes in the honey is destroyed. Rapanduras sugar is something else that comes from Andre from Brazil. You can Google it a little bit and have a look at it. It looks like dirt and it actually smells like a sugar refinery on the, when you go into one of those. It's very good. It will still give your child a sugar high, but not as much as refined sugar because it's basically the juice that's evaporated, and they use that. Agave syrup, I must just add there, you must use organic agave syrup because agave syrup, if it is not organic, it can be worse than sugar actually. Dates, raisins, figs, licorice root is also something you can use if you like the taste of licorice. It's incredibly sweet. A tiny bit is like really sweet. The same thing with stevia powder. Stevia is a plant, and they make an extract from the leaf. You can use absolutely no artificial sweetness. In the article that I'll have on my website, I'll cover things like xylitol, the artificial sweeteners and so forth. Xylitol, unfortunately, is a sugar alcohol and it makes you acid.
Sorry, the stevia, is there a difference? Does it matter if it's the powder or the drops?
Is there different stevia powder or drops? No. No, you can take the powder and dissolve it. 1 part of stevia to 5 parts of water and then dissolve it. The only thing is, you've got to be careful, stuff grows inside. So you'll see the one that you get on the shelf usually has citric acid with it to preserve it a little bit. But the powder, they also have pills, little tiny pills, stamped, and you can use that. Those are all fine. So the sweetness will say non-nutritive sweetness. So just somebody is asking online, what about fructose? Fructose is bad, but I'll cover that in the article. So diet is the biggest cause of all children's diseases. And what I've just covered to you is worth lots. You'll save lots if you get this right. Because invariably, if people come in for a consultation, we spend a lot of time on the diet, and we spend a lot of time on the diet after they leave. Because the diet after they leave, of course, is most important. Yes, you will get certain supplement to help, but the diet is the most important. There are a few other things in the diet that you need to exclude. One of them is MSG, or monosodium glutamate. Same thing is called HVP, hydrolyzed vegetable protein. Don't get stuff with preservatives in it, with flavorants, stabilizers. The best example is if you go pick up a packet of jelly and you read the ingredients, and it may be banana jelly, and you read the ingredients, and what's missing? Banana. There's no banana, right? But it tastes just like banana. So that's quite important. So the important thing is educate yourself on the labels. Don't say, oh, well, yeah, I suppose this is okay if you look at the label. Take it and take a picture with your one-day camera, or Google it in the store where you are, or make sure that what you're eating and consuming on a daily basis is free of that. It probably won't do much harm if you consume it once or every now and again. But that's one of the things that, let's say you buy a certain kind of cool drink continuously, and suddenly the children start coughing. Have a look again. Maybe you checked it 6 months or 2 years ago, and the company, I can tell you, we've experienced that with grape Tizer, for instance. Let me say this. Grape Tizer, the ones in the bottles, is preservative free, and they put it nice and big on the label. The ones in the plastic bottles, which are cheap, has got 2 preservatives in here, and they only put it down really small. So I asked them, so they said, oh no, but it's body friendly. I said, right. Why do you advertise it so big on the other one and put it like in fine print on this one? Why not say, we have body-friendly preservatives? Because they all know it's wrong. Okay, it's all wrong. So just be careful and, look at those kind of things. Just re-evaluate the labels every now and again, because products do change. We've had some health products change. So it's not just in the other industry. So the third thing that we get to now is no vaccinations. So that, unfortunately, vaccinations is the holy cow of unnatural, or what we can call scientific medicine. You see the little piggy there. It creates a lot of money for the industry. It is the most. There's nothing else. Maybe chemotherapy, but vaccinations is the most highly contentious subject in medicine. I'll tell you what happened. A friend of ours came to us and had some discussions, and I said, well, vaccinations aren't that good, the same stuff I'm telling you now. Her child turned out, he got whooping cough. The doctor harassed her, and she said, yes, Christo told me not to have a vaccination. So the next thing I had was this very friendly ungentle man phone me up and say, I'm a pediatrician at this hospital, and you treated this child, and now it has whooping cough. Well, I said, number one, I have never seen this child in my life. And secondly, sir, and it's when I said so, that he went, hey, because how can you say whooping cough is not life-threateningly dangerous. I said, well, you know what, we've had a 6-month-old, or what was she, 6-month-old that had whooping cough. A friend of mine has had a little one with whooping cough. Another friend of mine has had 3 little children, he's online, that had whooping cough, and they're perfectly fine. And he says, your insight is ludicrous. But the point is, when you're in that mindset, one of my other friends said, well, you can't speak to somebody like that because you're not in the same, not on the same page, not in the same book. So he's in a different book than we are. So those kind of people, will rule you through fear, because that's the most important thing with vaccinations is fear. Because if you have fear of contracting childhood diseases, then of course you will vaccinate. And let me say the last thing is the most unscientific of all modern medicine is vaccinations. Now these are wild statements I make. So vaccinations is believed, very important, it's believed, it's not scientific, it's believed to have been responsible for the virtual eradication of polio, whooping cough, tetanus, diphtheria, measles, mumps, chickens, and so forth. And it's touted by scientists as the truth. It's not the truth, I can tell you. It's like the whole global warming thing. I'm not going to go into that now, but the point is, it's a massive lie believed by billions of people. And if you look at the statistics, it's actually not true. Some of those diseases, most of them actually originated when people was in the Second World War and there was malnutrition and they had, they basically ate wood, and it spread through things like bad hygiene and so forth. Now that we've got good hygiene, it's not the case anymore, and the diseases die out. An interesting thing to go check up is the bubonic plague. In my DVD on understanding the health puzzle, I've touched on the bubonic plague and how eating I think it was, when was it, in the First World War, I can't quite remember exactly the date, it's the 1800s, and the Jews were saying, well listen, they didn't get sick because they had certain hygienic laws. And all the other people got sick, and I said it's the Jews' fault that we get sick because, look, they don't get sick. So it must be them that's making us sick. So hygiene plays a massive role. Anyway, let's not go there now. And they also say it is believed to have saved millions of lives. It is believed to be the proof of modern medicine's triumph over disease, because we have to eradicate disease. So, what it is not responsible for the eradication of diseases, and it is definitely responsible for millions of childhood diseases the world over, including autism being one of the biggest and most contentious issues again. There are many things that you can read on that, diabetes, death, cancer, and other immunological disorders. So I would highly recommend that you educate yourself on this matter. Most important, you can go to our website, to Irene Health Shop. You'll see in the top corner, if you go into the vaccination page, you'll see this interview between Dr. Mercola and Dr. Larry Palevsky. Now, the nice thing about Dr. Palevsky is that he's a board-certified pediatrician in the States. So he's a really clever man. And he gives vaccinations, or did give vaccinations, and now does not give it anymore. And there's a very long discussion on why he gave it and doesn't give it anymore. Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, she wrote the book called Saying No to Vaccinations. She's got a website, she's a doctor, you can go read her. Then the third guy is Dr. Andrew Wakefield. He's been ostracized. He's actually a very clever man. He's a gastroenterologist, nothing to do with natural medicine at all. Mothers brought children to him with tummy problems, autistic children. He says, no, well, I don't treat autistic children. So the mother said to him, well, please can you help our autistic child? And he said, well, actually, I don't do it. They said, no, but we've got a tummy problem. And so the tummy problem is helped by this gastroenterologist, and the autism gets better. And he thought maybe that's just chance, so he did it numerous times. And then, being a good doctor, having published 9+ peer-reviewed medical studies, he thought, well, maybe let's just look into this. And he came out with a study suggesting that there could be a possible link between MMR vaccinations and autism. And that was it. He got slaughtered. And the book that you see there, Callous Disregard, is the book that is written on the whole of the story, where it started and where it's ending. Now you can actually follow him on Facebook. It's called Dr. Wakefield's Work Must Continue. And if you check there, you'll see how evidence is now coming out about the fraud behind why they, for the first time in the history of the Lancet, pulled back a study that they had published, a study of course, and why it happened and the fraud behind it. But that's a very good one. The last one, What Doctors Don't Tell You, is an absolute excellent book on many subjects. There's also a website, What Doctors Don't Tell You. I think it costs a little bit of money to subscribe to it. It is worth every cent. It's run by Lynn McTaggart. She's a journalist, but a medical journalist, and she does incredible research. If you get that book that you see there, and you look in the back, about the last quarter of the book is all just references. Nothing is said without a reference. And that's actually the first place where I learned how bad vaccinations is. So there are many and literally hundreds of more books that you can read on vaccinations. They all say the same thing, don't do it. So what if you did vaccinate? Brain. Your child's immune system is now compromised. I know because we have done it. CJ, that runs the camera there, like I said, is the reason we're in here. And to this day, I can tell you for, 18 months or 2 years, he didn't grow when he got the DTP vaccination. He literally stood still for 2 years. We saw him wither away in front of us. And we literally did pray. And we got onto a wonderful homeopath that literally saved his life. To this day, he likes very much to ride horse, and he was in a few movies with Michelle that was here earlier on. In Labyrinth, you may see him later. But he was away for a week, and he had to come home one night because he ate the food they had there. And although I did give him pills, you know what it's like when you're out and about, you forget sometimes to take your dad's pills. And he got sick. I don't, or some other children may not, but his immune system, he's got to be careful because it's been compromised when he was very little. Luckily, and literally, praise God that we did not give him the 18 months MMR, because I can tell you he would have been autistic. And if I look at my other children, I can see some of them would have been as well. So, again, be 100% in touch with your child so that you know when something happens and why. And what if you didn't vaccinate? Pray. Because it doesn't matter what choice you make, whatever is your choice, you are the person that has to live with it. So if you vaccinate your child and the next day it's autistic, it sounds ludicrous. I've had countless mothers like that here. There's an autistic school, you can check them out, SNAP, Special Needs Adapted Program, in Durbanville here, and just talk to those mothers. I had the one mother come in, she said, I sat with a nurse, and I said, are you sure there's no side effects to vaccinations? Yes, there's no side effects. So, they shot the first time and she missed. The child pulled away, screaming loud. The second time, she vaccinated him. The next day, he had gone mute. And it's to this day. They spent thousands and thousands of rands trying to help these children. It is extremely difficult, extremely expensive, and there are success stories. But that's what happens. Not in all children. Here I am. I was vaccinated. Lenny was vaccinated. Many of you were vaccinated. But you see, the thing is, when you and I were young, there were a few vaccinations. And they weren't all jammed into one. And nowadays, up to, I think it's 18 months, a child can receive something like 21 different vaccinations. 6 in one now. And they want to vaccinate you against Simple things that you and I survived when we were little, like measles, I mean, genade, you know, whooping cough, chicken pox. It's a nice excuse to stay out of school. Yeah, I heard the other day that they want to develop one against diarrhea, and I'm thinking, my goodness, how the heck are you going to do that? But that's what they want to do for Africa. And you have no idea, you know, countries where vaccinations are done rigorously, like Nigeria. I see a lot of Nigerian children here because they are autistic, and they literally come to the best autism center in I believe in the world, and that's with Annelies van Rijswijk. She's the most incredible woman. She's spent more than 25 years with autistic children. If you have any doubts, go speak to her. So, if you haven't vaccinated your child, many, I said we did, because only CJ got vaccinated. The rest of the children didn't have vaccination. So be in touch with your child. That's very important. The last thing we're going to look at is natural remedies and common sense. And what that is, not rocket science. Some people think that it is rocket science. And it's actually fairly simple. The body has a built-in repair system. You don't have to do it. God did it for you. Don't suppress that system. Rather support that system. Allopathic versus homeopathic medicines means simply, allopathic means against the body. Homeopathic, although homeopathic medicine in itself is actually something entirely different, but means to work with the body, to support the body. So vaccinations against the body, supporting the body in a respiratory disease or a diarrhea or whatever, that's to help the body heal. Okay, and same thing with cancer. So things that you can do in general, I'll come back to this a little bit later, to support the system is to use something like BioStrat. You might have seen BioStrat. I've got a nice big bottle here so nobody can miss it. BioStrat is quite incredible. I got to meet the owner of BioStrat, Swiss company, and really something quite out of the ordinary. Then Omega Slow. Omega Slow is very good to support the immune system. It's a little bit different from other omegas, but Omega Slow specifically contains something called shark liver oil, which is incidentally in mother's breast milk. So ever thought why a mother can fight like a shark for a baby? Because she's got shark liver oil in her breast. Yes. Alkoxyglycerol and squalene is in the breast. And alkoxyglycerol is an amazing immune booster. We also say you use extra vitamin C, extra coral 8. Coral 8 because it contains vitamin D and coral calcium, and your body needs, it's the most important vitamins and minerals, vitamins and minerals that your body needs. And then we use olive leaf, I'm going to come back to that in a while, activate, coral water and variola. Variola is like a glyconutrient, just not at the price of some of the other ones that's available. And then when the condition is acute, give natural supplements acutely. What that means is very simple. When your child has a cough every now and again, a little bit, like a what would you do? You would just watch them. Maybe just, but if the cough becomes more frequent, you would start giving a little bit of medicine, and you'll see which ones to give. And if it's like really acute disease, then you give it acutely. Alright, that's the way it works. Some people say, yes, I do give olive leaf or 5 factor or something, and I give it how many? Oh, well, once a day, of course, Well, you need to give it once an hour. Because if your child is sick, natural medicines, you cannot overdose with most of them. And you do that, and it actually helps to fight the body. One very interesting point also is that if you breastfeed, you as the breastfeeding mother can take the medicine, and it passes through the breast, because believe it or not, everything you take passes through the breast to the baby. This is what we learned from that doctor that saved Heidi Marie's life. He's a very good homeopath here. So everything that the mother takes goes to the baby. You can't spray like in your newborn baby, olive leaf. They'll probably pass out because it tastes ghastly. Right, so here we go at a few specifics. Fever is probably the most prevalent one. So what is a fever? Well, a fever is simple. is the body's fighting mechanism. And this is basically what happens. When a child has a fever, or let's say it gets an infection, let's say bacteria or virus comes into the body, which happens quite often. Viruses and bacteria, if we go, I've just inhaled some bacteria from all of you over here. That's really strong. So I may have a fever tomorrow. I hope I don't. But I may have a fever. Why? Because what happens when bacteria starts growing in the body, you know, they multiply, they get more. What the body does is it raises the temperature so that while the temperature is high, the bacteria or a virus cannot multiply. And in the background, it reproduces and makes antibodies against the virus. Now, if you take a fever medication, you're suppressing that system. And you're taking the body's defense system away, which means that now it's still making, you know, the antigens or the antibodies in the background, but it can no longer do it fast enough because you took an antipyretic or a fever medication. What now happens is that system of it to you know, raise the temperature and be able to make it is no longer there. It's now the other way around. So your child maybe would have taken 2 days or 3 days to heal it. Now it takes a week or 2 weeks with antibiotics. The second thing is, please don't panic when a child has a fever. I've seen this happen. People panic, and the next thing they do is they ask advice. The next thing, oh no, you know, it was I had to give the child antibiotics. Now, when I hear that, I have to go to the toilet. Your child's system is responding. Don't panic. If the fever didn't go up, it means the child's system didn't work. I mean, how bad would that have been? Okay, so what do? You can give Silvermax. Silvermax is that. Many of you know it, but Silvermax is something that is antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, antiparasitic, anything that shouldn't be in your body. How can anything be like that? Well, thanks to God's creation, that's the way it is. It has a different charge to the pathogens in your body, and it simply works against the pathogens, not against your body. Olive leaf, vitamin C, biostrath, Epsom salt is a great thing to do. Epsom salt has saved many lives. Put 2 cups of Epsom salt in a bath and put the child in the bath. What you can do homeopathically is amazing. This is one of the most incredible things to do, is called Vibracol. I don't know who of you have seen the Vibracol suppositories. Yeah, and it's absolutely incredible. And you can put in every hour, but it really aids the body, and it's as effective as paracetamol. As effective.
Don't leave home without it.
Don't leave home without it. Yes. Engestol is the other thing that's incredible. Engestol is a tablet by Heal. Okay. Engestol is a non-specific immune booster. And what it does is it stimulates the non-specific immune system of the body. For fever, you can also give by Natura. There's a drop called Fever. There's also the tissue salt called Ferrumphos. And those all work really well. Sometimes you want to give some of those things simultaneously. Colds and flus. What is a cold and a flu? It's usually either a bacterial or a viral infection. So you don't panic, please. Your child's system is responding by raising the temperature and showing symptoms of invasion. So don't shut down the system. Say, well, all right, let's think about it. What's happening? We've got a foreign nunu in the body. Let's kill it. Let's help the body to kill it. Because if you give a chemical, it wipes out all the good nunus as well in the body. It's called the good bacteria. And you want the good nunus. Because they make up, in your gut, believe it or not, 80% of your immunity. So that's why if you give your child an antibiotic, 2 weeks, it'll be fine. Right? It'll get well. But the problem is 2 weeks later, it's sick again. You give another antibiotics, 2 weeks later, it's sick again. And it's a cycle. We were in that cycle, we know. And what it is the antibiotics kills the bacteria in the gut. And the gut bacteria really makes up 80% of your immunity. Right? So if you give something like Silvermax or olive leaf, I want to show you what olive leaf looks like. Olive leaf is probably the worst tasting thing I have in the shop, but I can tell you it is phenomenal. because it's so bad. You know, any Innu will take the runs after it tastes that stuff. It's horrible, but it works incredibly well, and it's basically from the leaf of olives. Yes. You spray it in the mouth, and because it's an alcohol base, it's horrible. So what you do is you spray it in a little bit of hot water, and then the alcohol evaporates, and then it's not so bad.
Juice?
Yes, you get used to it. You get addicted. I mean, you get very used to it. Yes. Then also you can give, like Biostrath, because Biostrath is a non-specific immune booster and so forth. And I can tell you this, literally is the remedy that saved CJ's life. We market it now as fight factor. Some people call it fear factor because of the taste also, but I can tell you we've now discovered that olive leaf actually tastes worse. But this is very good. It helps for boosting the immunity. It's got 2 kinds of echinacea in it. It also has hydrastis for mucus, and it also has antibiotic in it, natural antibiotic. So those are wonderful things you can do. Homeopathic, again, you can give Vibracol for the fever and for the unwellness and the unease and cryingness and so forth. Engestol, Synfrontal, helps to stop the nose from running a bit. For those that, sometimes it looks like Niagara Falls. So that's when you give a little bit of elderberry. Elderberry is also a herb that you can give. You get various different kinds of it. Elderberry. Quercetin is also something that you get from Solgar or from Viridian. Quercetin with vitamin B5 helps really to stop that. And of course the natural antihistamine is MSM. It's very inexpensive. You cannot overdose on it. It's a lot. You can give it to a child. The only problem with giving it to a child, it's a very bitter taste. So for adults, it's easy to take. Coughs. What is a cough? At the top of your windpipe, you've got a little valve. It's called the epiglottis. Now, when you've got the, let's say, the windpipe like that, and the valve is on top of it, if a little pee goes in there, right? You cough like for the first tip until you've got it out. Why? Because it's got a lot of nerve endings on top, and what happens is anything that gets to it, it sends a burst of air through the lungs, and you go, all right, and everything is out. So if you've got, there's something stimulating that epiglottis continuously. Now it could very well be that it's just simply that you swallowed saliva, or it went into the wrong pipe, or that you've got some infection or some mucus brooding in the upper nasal passages, and that will run down in the back here, called post-nasal drip, right? And it's constantly irritating that valve on top, and you cough, cough, cough. Now what you should not do is give cough medicine. It's the same thing as giving an antipyretic. If you give a cough medicine, what does it do to this valve? Yes, it gets like lay, very relaxed. And you want to pass it, lets it through. And the next thing, that mucus from your nose runs into your, into the bronchus, okay, into the windpipe. And so the next thing you develop is bronchitis. And if you leave it long enough, all that mucus runs into the lungs. It's called pneumonia. Now you've got problems because you gave the wrong medicine. The real scientific medicine is actually what you gave. I can tell you, we've been there. Because CJ, when the 100-day whooping cough, you know how long 100 days is? It's like a third of a year. And then after that, because his immune system was compromised, that for years after that we struggled until we found the remedies that work well for a cough. And I can tell you that the remedies by Heal works really well. I'll show you the 3 that works very well. You get tartafedril. Don't worry, if you come in and ask me or mail me. Tartafedril by Heal is for a very dry asthmatic cough. Then, if you're not sure what the cough is, sometimes it's wet, sometimes it's dry. It's called Astil. Astil is the other remedy that you use. And then lastly, if it's a very productive, like, bronchitis kind of cough, then we call it Bronchalis Heal. And those are the 3 remedies. And you don't give it twice a day, you give it at least once every hour. It's homeopathic, you cannot overdose. If you give the whole bottle at once, it has the same effect as though you give 1 pill. So what the thing with homeopathic remedies is to give it more frequently, like give it every 10 minutes, give it every half an hour. Then you have a really strong reaction in the body. Something else that you can do is also, of course, the ingestol, vibacol, to support the immune system. Olive leaf, if there is infection. Vitamin C, give them a bath with Epsom salt, let them rest. If you've got something like whooping cough, the only thing that you can give that's homeopathic that really works is Drosera. You can also give something called Spascupril. Spascupril, some of you mothers that went into premature labor may know Spascupril, but Spascupril is basically something against any spasm. So you get a very spasmodic cough, you may use Tartafadril and Spascupril. So you can see from this that there are specific remedies that you can give for specific illnesses. And the easiest would probably be to tell. How do you tell the difference between an allergy cough and a sick cough? Well, the one sounds sick, I mean, you know. Allergy cough, no, I'm just joking. The allergy cough usually is in having been in touch with, you see the first, on the 3rd point that I've said there is diet. If the child had some dairy yesterday, or some wheat, or it had the cool drink with a preservative in, you have to backtrack. You can't just say, oh well, you know, when you walk in, your child's got an allergy cough. You can't. You have to see what the origin of the cough was. And if you give things like Lufil or elderberry and the cough goes away, perfectly fine. If the cough doesn't go away and it worsens, you've got to go a little bit further and say, well, you know, what is the cause, and maybe I should give some olive leaf. But that's one of the things of being in touch with a child from step 1. And you have to be in touch with the child, otherwise, you know, you've got to monitor it and see, you know, what's happening. The next one is bronchitis and pneumonia. What is a bronchitis? Like I just said, you know, if that mucus runs down the itis means it is an infection. So you've got tonsillitis, right? The itis always means infection. The bronchitis means there is an itis in the bronch, right? And don't panic. It's not, it sounds worse than it is. Your child's system is responding by excreting. Well, maybe it can't respond because you made that valve, you know, nice and relaxed, and it can't think anymore. All right, so important when you get to something like bronchitis, you've got to be very careful. Careful, watchful waiting, we call it. You've got to give a lot of the antibiotics like olive leaf, Silvermax, and vitamin C and things like that, because if you neglect it, it can very easily go into pneumonia and it can kill the child. So if you let it slide, you may have to go to the hospital. And that's great to go to a hospital because it'll save your child's life. But it's not a chronic problem. If it's a chronic problem, you can't do that. Okay? So, homeopathically, you can give bronchialis heal again and vibacol, ingestol to support the system. And so bronchitis, more or less the same. Ear infection. How do you know if it's an ear infection? Who of your children has had an ear infection? How do you know? They said, Mummy, my ear is sore today. No. Yeah, but now it's newborn, so how do you know? Yes. You said screaming? Yeah, they go mad. Yeah, they really have a scream that's second to none. Okay. One of the best remedies that we have discovered by chance is fight factor. And what you do with fight factor is you pin the child down and you put 1 drop in the ear. That's what you do. Or you get your husband to pin the child down and carefully put 1 drop in the ear. They absolutely hate it, and the next minute they hug you because it works like that. It's the best remedy I've seen for an earache ever. Now, of course, that does not solve the problem immediately, so you have to get rid of the source of the mucus that's building up in the ear, and that could very well be diet. Had some dairy, some this, some that, the other thing, maybe the child, you know, whatever. So, diet is always to go back to. Now, you know, wheat, dairy and sugar, and that is the origin of the problem.
Cold.
Or they have a cold and it spreads and it all clogs up. Yeah. One of the things that you can give is otitis. It's a remedy by Natura, right? And Oregon grapefruit is a fantastic remedy by Viridian. Oregon grapefruit is for that when it's all stuffy and clogged up. That's when you use Oregon grapefruit. So that works well.
What is belladonna?
Belladonna also helps. Also, let me just see if we have one here. Yes. Belladonna you can also help for serious infections, but belladonna is quite a specific remedy. It helps for incredible headaches. This is a fantastic book if you can get hold of it. In the back you find all the remedies and you simply go to belladonna. Belladonna homochord of any of the heal remedies means it's got different strengths of the same thing combined. So that's a homo. And then the next one is sinus. Okay. So what is sinus? Well, it's more or less the same thing as ear infection. It's just on a different spot. It's all blocked up. Okay. So here we have the great book Belladonna. There's quite a lot of things that you can do. The initial stages of acute infection with clinical manifestation of inflammation, redness, swelling, pain, heat and loss of function in the organ system. And it has 2 more paragraphs. So you're welcome to come have a look afterwards. Yes. So now sinus is, you can either just have stuffy nose or you can have itis. And stuffy nose itis. It's called sinusitis. Don't panic, again, please. The body is excreting. It could be from the diet. See how the pattern is the same. The diet. Don't panic, number 1. It could be the diet. Investigate. Support the system with 5 factor Silvermax, olive leaf, amigo slow, Oregon grapefruit. Homeopathically very nice for children. I must just say this, that we use a lot of homeopathic remedies for children. And most of the things that we use is homeopathic for the children, except the herbals like 5 factor and olive leaf and so. But Kali myrrh and Kali salt, those are tissue salts that you can give with biggest of peace because it doesn't do any harm to the child. Kali myrrh is when the child has white mucus and it's congested in the sinuses or the way, the nose. Kali sulf, think of sulfur, it's yellow. That's when the mucus is yellow. You get some slime pills called Kali sulf. Synfrontal, also by Natura, very fantastic remedy. Engestol, nasosinus by Natura, and euphorbium is one by Heal. Euphorbium is a spray that you can put in the nose, and that actually works really well to get rid of blocked sinuses. Asthma. Who has asthma here? Asthma, I wouldn't say throw away your pump immediately. Keep it as a safety net. But the problem with using it continuously is it contains usually cortisones and steroids, and that suppresses your immune system. And you get fungal growth in the back of your throat. Now, if you have something like that, spray grapefruit seed extract or GSE, because that helps to eliminate the fungus in the throat. As the same thing you spray for foot fungus and so on. But one of the most incredible remedies is you take something called pantothenic acid or B5 with vitamin C every hour. And you cure it literally in a day. But you have to take it continuously. Then it stays away. Because pantothenic acid B5 is usually when you're stressed that you use B5. Who in here is not stressed? Yes. So you take pantothenic acid, you de-stress, and suddenly you're a little bit better. Right. And then we have Omega Slow and the other things that we usually say to just support it. Tartafadril, again, the homeopathic cough medicine. Now that's a specific one that you use when you've got asthma, the tartafadril. You can also use Spascupril, Bronchalis Heal, and Tromil, because Tromil repairs some of the enzymes in the system that is damaged when you get asthma. Very important, drink lots of water. I've got a book here by Dr. Batman Galich. He says Cure asthma now with water. He wrote a thick book on that, on water and asthma. Cure asthma now with water. Of course, diet, very important with that. Nausea and vomiting. Well, I don't think I need to explain what nausea is. Most of you know. Don't panic again. It could be the diet. You know, like I said, the child went to a party. It could be, mostly it is a bug. For which you give Silvermax, GSE, liver detox, and cell food is incredible for using when you've got some kind of a stomach bug. Homeopathically, you can give Nux vomica, also from Heal, Nux vomica Homocord. Also, the Homocord is various different ones. Vomitus Heal, I must show you, because Vomitus Heal is actually one of the best remedies I have found for nausea. The name tells it all, Vomitus Heal, and all you do is you give 10 drops every half an hour or so. You can give it straight or in a little bit of water. Gastricum Heal, a little pill. And how do you give a pill to a baby? These homeopathic pills, very easily crushed in between 2 teaspoons and simply put it in there. Diarrhea, what did you eat? Did you go eat at some restaurant? Maybe some salad or so. What you do, you have to understand what happens when the child gets diarrhea. So what you want to do is give a flora to support it. There are 2 that you give. You can give SBO by 7.5, or you can give ABC Dophilus, which is specifically for little ones. And ABC Dophilus works incredible. There is also, you give ABC Dophilus after a child's been born by a C-section because the whole system is upset. That's in a different post on Liddy's blog or on my blog. One by Natura called Diarrhea, or Diarrheal by Natura by Heal, also works very well for those things. Very important though is to make sure that the child does not dehydrate, because if they do dehydrate, you're in trouble. You have to end up in hospital with a drip and things like that, spending thousands of rands. So make sure the child drinks enough coral water, right? The coral calcium sachets in the water, and you also want to put in that water, you put some concentrates drops. So the concentrates gives the minerals that you put in the water. In our house we drink it on a daily basis. So make sure you get the minerals, because that's what rehydrate is. Alright. There's also the mix with sugar, salt. Sugar, salt, that's the other thing they put in the water that you use up in Africa if you get dehydrated. So make sure, and the nice thing is, if your child's breastfed, of course, give it breast milk. Eczema. Eczema is not a disease. Eczema is a skin reaction to something inside. It's an excretion, so your body is excreting something. So what you do, you go to the dermatologist and they give you cortisone to push it back, because we don't want to see that. And what you've got to do is you've got to check what the child ate. It was so bad in our case that Heidi Marie had pus come out her chest. Pus out of the skin. Then he had some canned ham. Very nice. The ones in those bottles. Those tins. Horrible. And milkshakes, yes. So what you give is, you must clean out the system. You give Activate, Assimilate, Liver Detox. Works incredibly well to clean out anything with skin to do, because it's all to do with the liver, of course. The liver cannot filter all the toxins, so it takes a shortcut out through the skin. Squalene, if there's lesions, you put squalene on. Squalene is the isolate of shark liver oil. It's in omega slow, right? But in omega slow, the SLO part is shark liver oil. It contains squalene and alkoxyglycerol. Squalene specifically to heal the skin. If you can put it on your face. That's why I have such a lovely wife. She puts it on her skin, and that helps to make it very soft. Supportive, again, the same things. And you can also, maybe you've touched something and there's a fungal thing, just like a ringworm, for instance. If you spray the grapefruit seed extract on the ringworm, it disappears within a few days. The other thing, warts. You have children with warts, give them Silvermax. Silvermax is antiviral, and the wart is a virus. And that works really well. You can also sometimes put a little bit of baking soda on the bath, but what really works well is Epsom salts. 2 cups of Epsom salt in a bath, and let the child be in the Epsom salts. Measles, a child illness. It's a virus, don't panic again. Give the things that kills the virus. There you have it. The child may have a little bit of a cough, you can give tartufidril or whichever one. Remember tartufidril if it's a very dry cough, Husteel if it's a wet and dry, and bronchalicil if it's a bronchus kind of cough. You give Vibracol for fevers, Ingestol to support non-specific immune system. Chickenpox, it's a virus, don't panic. Again, same things. There's one specific homeopathic remedy that you can give called Rustox. That helps to support the body. The thing is with Rustox, if the minute you see the first chicken pox, give it. Otherwise it really doesn't help all that much. But there's also an ointment, calamine lotion that you can put on, anything to support it. And it's a virus, specifically of the herpes strand, so you can give L-lysine, it's an amino acid that also helps a bit. So, to conclude, what we do in general and what you have just seen is not a medical thing. You must understand what the body is doing. These days with Google, it's so simple to understand what's happening. Just don't do what they tell you to, usually. Don't panic if the child gets a fever, a cough, or a runny tummy or something. But do something immediately. Don't wait, do it immediately. If you do it immediately, you really find that it works very well. Then what you do is generally don't suppress but support the system. If the body is trying to tell you something, raising the fever, excreting something through the nose or coughing or through the skin or through the backside, it's trying to tell you something. Don't shut it down. Support it rather, so it can finish that function quicker. And how do you do that? Some things like Silvermax, Omega-Slow, vitamin C, olive leaf, fight factor, Variola. Variola is a massive immune boosting substance. It's that corrects the handshake between invaders and self. And if that handshake is well recognized, the body can recognize an invader and kill it quickly. The problem is if it doesn't recognize it, and that's what happens with taking chemical antibiotics. Also, homeopathic, we generally give Vibracol, Ingestol, and a specific remedy. Vibracol, Ingestol, and a specific something else. Like for diarrhea, or for cough, or for colds, or for whatever. And lastly, Biostrat, Coral 8, and a bath with Epsom salts and some rest is supportive. You can visit us online at our Rini Health Shop. We have some great specials there. If you want to order in the rest of the country, we ship for free in South Africa. We're also on Facebook with, what do we call it? Natural Health Discussions. Some of you are there, some of you are on the seminar online because of that. And then we also have electronic consultations for some people in the rest of the world where we consult electronically.